Welcome to What a Creep, the show with Margot Donohue and Sonia Mansfield, talking about creeps from the past to the present.
This is your quick guide to the biggest creeps, jerks, assholes, and losers, the best of the worst.
From two nice ladies who want the world to be a little less creepy. Welcome back to What a Creep. This is Margot Donohue, and my cohort in creepitude, as always, is the amazing Sonia Mansfield. Hey, Sonia.
Hello, my friend.
Hello, my friend. We are the podcast that talks about creeps from the past to the present. If this is your first time listening, welcome. We also should let you know a couple of things. One, we do use salty language in this program, so this is your big warning to, put earmuffs on those kids if you don't want them to listen.
Fuck yeah.
And also, we always end the program with somebody who is not a creep. So just keep that in mind. We will end it on a very positive note for all of you. I think you'll love our non-creep today.
Oh, good.
We have a basic Facebook page. We don't really follow that. We're much more interactive in our private Facebook group. You do have to ask to join and answer a few questions. Please do that, and you can come join us there. We're also at CreepPod on Twitter because somebody had What a Creep for over 10 years and never used it.
Creep.
We're at What a Creep podcast on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky. And also we have an old-timey email, whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, please send us your email. We will drop them in the mail for you. Sonia, you want to tell them?
It.
Yep, we'll do it. Sonia, you want to tell them about what's on the website, our website?
Yeah. Go to whatacreeppodcast.com, and it's everything you ever want to know about our show, but we're afraid to ask. You shouldn't be afraid to ask,
Never.
But go ahead and go there. There are links to all of our past episodes, and you can open those up in their blog posts. And we have all of our sources because we source everything we do. We're not making this stuff up. We want to give people credit for the work they've done. If you're looking for a deeper dive on any of our creeps, that's a fabulous place to start. So do that. There's also a link to our Substack, which I really should update. And there's a link to our merch shop where you can get t-shirts and tote bags and face masks because the bird flu's coming, y'all, and COVID's never went away. And get some face masks. They're really comfy. I'm thinking about ordering some new ones.
Did you hear about in New York, our illustrious mayor and governor?
I did see this headline.
They're trying to get it so that you can't wear a subway mask on the subway to bring down crime, crime has already been down. And it's not because of the masks. And people have been wearing masks on the subway. I've moved to New York in 1995. I mean, normally they were Asian people, to be honest, because they knew better, basically, than the rest of us. But there's always been masks, and that's just stupid. And if you want to wear one, wear one. We do. It is, it will help you quite a bit. But anyway, sorry, Sonia.
I always wear a mask when I'm on public transportation.
Yes.
It's gross because people are gross.
And you don't smell the stinky people. I mean, there are, it covers your bad breath. I mean, there are some positives there.
I'm like, mind your business.
Yes.
If people want to wear masks, let them wear masks. It's not your business. What else was I going to tell people? Oh, there's also a link to our Patreon. If you want to tell them about that, Margot.
Yes. Patreon. There is also an app that you can download to listen to our episodes. Our first 8 seasons are on that Patreon wall. So if we talk about a past episode and you're like, it's not in your feed, that's where it is. Come join our Patreon. We also put on, it is fun. And we put out 2 bonus episodes a month on that Patreon. And it just helps us with the cost for getting all these subscriptions and all the software and shit like that to put the show together. So all of you, I want to thank Whit and Frank for joining us on Patreon. I think.
Thank you.
We really appreciate both of you. And also,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think you were going to say this too. Another way to support us is to leave us reviews in Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps us, especially for people who want to leave 1 stars and poop all over us. So I want to say thank you to Ebony Cubana, who gave us a fabulous 5-star review in Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate it. Also, everybody at Good Pods or Spotify, wherever, once again, we really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Alrighty, I think I went through all the rigmarole.
Okay. Are we ready for these creeps?
Oy, oy, oy. I think so.
Okay, I've got a twofer for y'all, and there is a trigger warning here, pretty serious one, so y'all take care of yourselves if this is not the episode for you. Totally make sense. Or you could just skip to the end and go right to the non-creep. It's all good. Trigger warning is digital child sexual assault and child molestation. Like, it's
serious.
It's gross. Yeah, it's serious, y'all. We're going to be talking about Stephen Collins and Jeffrey Jones. Do you know who Stephen Collins is? Let's start there.
Yes, I do. He was in a bunch of TV movies that I liked. But he's a character actor.
Yes, exactly. This is our character actor edition. And then Jeffrey Jones is probably best known as the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off or the dad in Beetlejuice.
Yes.
Both of these actors have probably appeared in some of your favorite things to watch. And they're both real creeps. So we're going to start with Stephen Collins. Sources for this section: ABC News, In Touch Weekly, New York Post, People Magazine, Stephen Collins' own website, TMZ, Yahoo, and Wikipedia. Always Wikipedia. Mm-hmm. So Stephen Weaver Collins was born in Iowa, October 1st, 1947. My apologies to the Libras. I am one of you. He grew up in Hastings-on-Hudson in Westchester County, New York.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, I want to make sure I got it all pronounced correctly. He started acting in high school plays. He went to Amherst College in Massachusetts, and he was also in a lot of bands there. And he performed in like 22 plays. Like, he was very active in the drama department. After graduating, he went to New York, and he instantly hit the stage. Like, he did Shakespeare in the Park. He did Twelfth Night at the Delacorte Theater in Central Park. He did tons. He was very, very busy. And Stephen Collins is one of those actors who always worked. Mm-hmm. Always. He floated between stage, TV, film for years. A stage show here, a miniseries there, a movie, a Lifetime movie. Always working. Both of these dudes always
That's
working.
kind of, I would think, the dream.
Yes.
You're just busy enough. Like, you could pay your bills and stuff. You're comfortable that way, but you're not so famous that you can't really live a life.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a link to Jeffrey Jones' sources down here, and there's one of them is an interview where he talks about how great it is to be a character actor, basically, because you're always working. You get to do what you love, but you don't have the trappings of celebrity. Mm-hmm. And both of these guys were these kinds of guys. They were really good at playing ex-husbands, mm-hmm. Boyfriends, and creeps, basically. Yeah, they were really good at that. So, Stephen Collins was never a huge star, but you'd recognize him from a million things you've seen. He was in the first Star Trek movie. He was in a ton of TV movies in the 80s. He was Diane Keaton's husband in the first Wives Club.
Yep.
But probably most known for playing the wholesome father on the very wholesome show Seventh Heaven, which is why what he did is even more creepy. And that show was on the WB, which was a network that existed back in the day from 96 to 2007. He also wrote a couple of novels.
I read one of those novels.
Oh, which one do you remember?
The first one that he did, and I don't know what it's called.
It's called Eye Contact.
I think so, and it's about a woman who's an exhibitionist.
Oh, okay.
And I remember reading it going, whoever wrote this is really creepy because he has weird ideas of what women do. And it's basically a woman who gets naked and has sex with people, out of nowhere. She's like, I need to fuck that couple right over there, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So sometimes when men write women, they're telling on themselves.
Oh, absolutely they are. And there's a whole genre on Reddit of bad sex scenes in romance novels and books. And it's usually the men that write really her heaving breasts were doing this and that. I want to just say also, sorry, this was the first time that I realized I got this paperback and Jamie Lee Curtis made the blurb and it was on the front cover, and now I realize that's a warning when it's just some random celeb praising. They're okay, they're just doing a friend a favor. They don't really.
Exactly. That is it's so interesting that you read that. That's hilarious. So he was married from 1970 to 78. It didn't last. And then he was on a drama series called Tales of the Gold Monkey. I'm sure everybody remembers where they were when that show dropped. And that's where he met, excuse me, actress Faye Grant, and they hit it off and they got married in 85. You might remember her. She was in The Greatest American Hero, and then she was in the V miniseries. So, which if y'all haven't seen the V miniseries, it was a phenomenon when it came on. It was
85, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it was like a big deal, and it was about like aliens coming. It was,
and they ate mice or rats. They ate, right?
I think they ate
rodents,
rats. Yeah, and like, oh, it was creepy.
Yeah.
What I remember was there was like a woman in the show. She had sex with an alien, and then she had an alien baby, and the baby's born, and it's like, and it has like a really long tongue, and I was like horrified by it. Anyway, so they were married for like 20 years, more than 20 years, I should say. And, you know, you could go online and see, and there's pictures of them like walking different red carpets and going to premieres, and they look like a happy little family. They have a daughter, but like a lot of couples, more complicated than you think. And they started having problems, and they were doing couples therapy, and they were headed for a messy divorce, and you're going to find out why here in 1 second. So while they were in marriage therapy, Faye started secretly recording the sessions.
Ew.
Pretty sneaky.
That is sneaky.
Yeah. So in an interview later, Collins said that Grant had secretly recorded like everything, and he didn't know his wife was wearing a wire basically until after one of the sessions. And he says,
that would be shocking. I'm sorry.
Yeah. She took me to a stairwell, and she told me there, she revealed, I was wearing a wire. I recorded that session. And she's like, here's our settlement, and you're going to sign it now, or that recording's going to find the way to the media. And he said, I always said this, marriage is absolutely unfathomable. You think you understand someone else's marriage. Nobody does.
Yeah.
And basically, I'm like, okay, but also, she's not the problem here, dude.
Right.
There's a reason why she was recording it. So she did like hand over the tapes of their sessions to the NYPD in 2012 God. Because he was molesting people and exposing himself to girls, to children. Mm-hmm. And one of the victims was wanted to file charges. Right. And she's like, I here, hands over the tapes.
Because that is, yeah, crime.
Exactly. And even with the recording, like, nothing happened. Like, he didn't get charged with anything. It just sat there for like 2 years. And then the recording was leaked to TMZ. Leaked. I'm going to put that in quotes. Well, I guess it is a leak, actually. I shouldn't put in quotes. And that was like 2 years later. So nobody knows who leaked these recordings. Grant says that she didn't do it, but maybe she did. He says that she leaked it. And she's like, no, and I hope he gets the help he needs or whatever. She also claimed that he's a narcissist with sociopathic tendencies. She said that he would use his celebrity status to like groom, families. Like he would gain their trust, and then he would assault their children. Mm-hmm. In those recordings, he admits to what he did. He admits to three separate incidences of sexual misconduct in there. So in the recording, he fully confesses to like molesting an 11-year-old girl in New York. She was a relative of his first wife. Again, he admits these things. Like there's no denying it. He, says that like they were sitting on a couch together, and he like grabs her hand and puts it on him. And it's really, really gross. And he did it repeatedly to her when she was 11 and till she was 13.
Oh God.
It's awful. And like in the session, his wife just asks him like, you know, why would you do that? And she asked him, like, did you get an erection? And he says, you know, maybe a partial or whatever. Like, he's very matter of fact
Semi-would.
about that he did these things. He also mentions another child, a girl who lives in LA and their neighborhood. That he apparently tried to apologize to her years later, but she wasn't having it, and nor should she, because fuck that guy.
No, and you can also re-traumatize a person.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I understand wanting to make amends, but sometimes that's about making yourself feel better versus
Yes.
the right
it
thing
was
to
100%
Yeah.
about making himself feel better. And then he admits to, again, another girl in New York who was maybe 12 or 13 at the time.
So sorry.
It's so awful. It's so gross. So the tapes come out and like he's immediately dropped from his, there's repercussions, as there should be.
Right, yeah.
Imagine that. So like he had a reoccurring role, funny enough, on Scandal. So he got the boot from that. He got fired from Ted 2, which I haven't seen any of the Ted movies,
God,
but
no, but I've heard enough about them to be like, oh my God, you're so gross. The Ted people don't even want you. The Ted
Yeah,
movie people
right?
think you're just you're toxic.
right, exactly. Like Seth MacFarlane sometimes cracks me up, but I also think Seth MacFarlane can be really gross and go far.
No,
Like,
that's
anyway.
once again, edgy humor. We've
Yeah.
talked about that. Like some, it's of a time.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I don't know if he thought this was going to help his career or not, but in December 2014, he actually like issues this like really detailed, lengthy statement to People magazine. And y'all know I love me some People magazine. And he admits to everything. Like, and of course, but when he talks about it, it's inappropriate sexual conduct with underage girls. I'm like, also known as children.
Those are
Like, these-
children, and inappropriate
exactly.
is fucking illegal and damaging.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. You know, and he explains that these three victims were between the years 1973 and 1994, and that he had not had an impulse to act out in such a way in the last 20 years.
Just for 20 years, he had this impulse, and then the last
no
20
big deal.
years, he's decided not to do it. Which good for you for not doing it, but
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah,
get an
what do you wanna-
attaboy for it either.
Yeah, good job. Good job not molesting people in the last 20 years. Like, here's your fucking cookie. Like, what if...
That's narcissism to a very high degree.
Exactly. Yeah, and in the statement, and again, it's linked in the show notes, he goes into detail, which is super creepy. Like, you know, talking about like sitting next to her, one of the children on the couch and like moving her hand while they're watching TV and all this. It's really fucking gross for a statement that you're issuing to the media. I'm like, this isn't one of your books, you like, it's nasty. And then he, you know, does the whole like 40 years ago I did something terribly wrong and I deeply regret it, and you know, I've been working to atone, and then he tries to blame his wife, you know. She released the recordings during a confidential marriage therapy session. The session was recorded without my therapist or my knowledge or consent. And it's like, those things are true. Like, that's not cool for the therapist, but also, whatever,
Yeah.
man, you're a fucking creep. I have no empathy for your
Outrage
fact
about being
that you're,
recorded.
yeah, exactly. I'm sorry. I know that we're not supposed to secretly record people, but also fuck off. You were molesting children and I don't have empathy for you. So, you know, and he actually talks about how he tried to like apologize, and he even said, but I could have I made things worse for her. And I was like, yeah. And then after he issues his lengthy statement to People, like, more stories came out, because this is what usually happens. It turns out, you know, it's probably not just these three children. And he also, the wife releases an email that he says, like, he was so glad that they had a daughter. He was worried that if they had a son, that he would want to molest the son.
What?
Yeah. It's he says something really gross to the point where I was like, I don't know if I should even
No,
say.
don't. No, yeah.
Yeah.
It's in the notes, right? It's in the show notes.
You can read the People magazine article yourself, but he talks about like basically he didn't know if he would be able to not molest their son, which is, and he says that it's untrue, but it's documented. So take what you will from that. After his confession, he's never charged with a crime. I don't know why that is. If that's like a statute of limitations situation,
yeah.
Or maybe the people not wanting to come forward, or it sounded like someone was trying to come forward, which is why these things were turned over to the police in the first point.
But I'm sure there was a statute of limitations, especially back then. I mean, it's only in the last few years that they've like actually opened a window and said, okay, if this has ever happened to you, now's the time to do it. And that's when people have to be like, all right, get a lawyer, get some evidence.
Yes.
You know, you got to go through all this shit now and might be turned down. You might be turned away.
Yeah. And it could be that the charges weren't going to happen, which is why the tape gets leaked by somebody, quote unquote, somebody.
That's what I would
So, he was never charged, but he saw like a sexual dysfunction therapist for sex addiction. And he doesn't work. He's living in a small town in Iowa. Like, you Google his name, he was spotted by like paparazzi. I don't even want to say paparazzi. I think somebody just snapped a shot and was like, oh my God, the dad from Seventh Heaven lives here.
I'm sure he made some decent money back in the day, and maybe he saved some. Yeah.
Again,
but
dude was always working.
Yeah, but who's going to hire him? I mean, yeah.
So that's him. And now we're going to talk about Jeffrey Jones. And sources for this one are Entertainment Weekly, Hollywood Reporter. I have a link to an interview with Jeffrey Jones that's on YouTube, and then Wikipedia. So Jeffrey Duncan Jones, born September 28th. Again, a Libra, y'all. Sorry, Libras. 1946 in Buffalo, New York. By all accounts, a really smart dude. He went to Lawrence University in 1964 in Wisconsin. He was pre-med. And his mother apparently was like, you should try acting. And he started appearing in shows at the college, and he really caught the acting bug, and he was really good. And he did a lot of different shows, and he caught the eye of someone named Tyrone Guthrie, who owns the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And apparently that's a really good theater. I don't know that. And he did like over 100 shows for that theater. Did everything for them, like musicals, dramas, comedies. He could do it all. And then he started getting like small parts in TV shows and movies in the 70s. And then in the 80s, it's like him and like the guy who played Walter Peck in Ghostbusters. Like, these two dudes were so good at playing creeps and weirdos and assholes. They were so good at that stuff. I used to mix them up. It's like the red hair, the big eyes, like Jeffrey Jones does Amadeus.
Yes.
Which he gets his only Golden Globe nomination for Best Supporting Actor. He doesn't win, but he's really good in it. And then he does, things like Howard the Duck. And then the big things are like Ferris Bueller, which he's really funny.
We're not saying they're not talented, by the way.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, he's so funny in Ferris Bueller. Like, it's very wild. Yeah, it's very Wile E. Coyote. Like, everything he tries to do goes wrong. If you haven't seen Ferris Bueller, there's some funny shit in that movie. And then, of course, he's like the clueless dad in Beetlejuice. And again, he's really, really good in it. And Tim Burton really loved working with him. And people seem to really love working with him. They were down to work with him over and over. Tim Burton used him again in Ed Wood and Sleepy Hollow. Like, he was an actor's actor. People liked him. And like I said, in the interview, he talks about how great it is to be a character actor. You get all the fun, you get all the experience, you get the money, but you don't have the traps of celebrity.
Yeah.
Like, he's not being followed by paparazzi. Yeah. And yeah, dude probably doesn't want the Travis celebrity because it turns out he's into some fucked up shit. So in 2002, the story's very convoluted, so stay with me here.
Okay.
The LAPD were investigating some sexual abuse allegations from a 17-year-old boy. He says when he was 14, Jones, who would have been 56 at the time, took sexually explicit photos of him for September 2000 to May 2001. So he
14?
and yeah, he was 14
Ninth
at the
grade,
time.
maybe? Oh, Jesus.
And he says, like, he paid him to pose nude on multiple occasions. One time he's like wearing a cowboy hat, and another time this is like he's with a bunch of stuffed animals, which is to make him appear even younger. You know, one time he dressed him up as a Native American. I don't know what that's about, but and then police searched his home, and that's when they charged him with possession of digital child sexual abuse, and soliciting the 14-year-old boy to produce explicit images. So I mentioned this is a little convoluted because this also tied into they were investigating Paul Rubens. And
yes, Pee Wee Herman, because he was in an adult theater and he spanked it in an adult theater, which
so which are two separate things.
Those are two different things.
So what happened was, this is how it all happens. So a few years earlier, it would have been 91, I think, 91. Pee Wee Herman is arrested. Sorry, Paul Rubens, who plays Pee Wee Herman, is arrested for basically indecent exposure in a adult theater in Florida. Which, by the way, this is pre-internet, so if you wanted to see dirty movies, you were renting them or you were actually going to a theater to do it. And trust me, I'm sure Paul Rubens wasn't the only one with his wang.
No, it's what you
theater.
expect. I mean, that's like what those things are. Do you remember they had I've done this before. They've been in those booths where you put in a quarter and it plays like 10 seconds of a scene. You keep putting in quarters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I've done it.
Yeah, he gets arrested. And it's a huge deal because Pee Wee Herman is being marketed to children, and like Pee Wee's Big Adventure has come out, and we get this very famous thing where like he then shows up at the MTV Video Music Awards and he's dressed as Pee Wee and he's like, heard any good jokes lately?
Which was the smartest, best way to handle your public relations.
He's like, so
right
funny,
there.
I forgot to laugh. Like, you know, it's like he did it exactly right. But it derailed his career for a while.
Bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when people got past the fact that, first of all, like, he's a human being, also what he did is not really that weird. It's like, yeah, he was in an adult theater and he was probably jerking it. What it meant was he had a record now, and he pled no contest, and he had to do community service. He made some anti-drug public service announcements and, you know, all of that. But it also meant like the law had their eye on Pee Wee Herman, on Paul Rubens. Sorry, he's Paul Rubens in this. Pee Wee would never. So it's at some point. So they have his eye on him when they are talking to this boy he also mentions like that he heard that Paul Rubens has stuff. So there was also like, as they searched Jeffrey Jones's house, they also searched Pee Wee Herman's house.
Paul Rubens' house.
Paul Rubens' house.
Pee Wee's house, they have like a talking toaster.
Yeah,
and
the couch was like, he would never. Like, the secret word is. No, so they searched his home. They found a bunch of like with what would qualify. It was vintage erotica, and like there was a bunch of magazines. There was there was hundreds and hundreds of magazines, of these like old magazines, and they the people who sold it to him are like, he would have no idea that all of these things were in these mag. It wasn't child pornography, basically. Like, but it happened the same time as Jeffrey Jones, so people kind of
Right.
linked these things together, which again kind of put Paul Rubens in a weird space in his career again. But
Until
again,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
yes, yes, which was the following year.
Right.
So I just wanted to, I don't want people to think that I wasn't acknowledging that there was a whole other part of this story. There is a whole other part of this story. So, Jeffrey Jones, meanwhile, literally had child pornography on his stuff. And digital child sexual abuse. Thank you. And they searched his house. They found more stuff. He had things on his computer, et cetera, et cetera. So he pled not guilty to the possession charge, and he pled no contest to the charge of soliciting a minor. Mm-hmm. So what that means for people who don't know what pleading no contest means, it means he doesn't admit guilt, but he agrees to be convicted. So it's kind of
he's not going to fight it.
He's not going to fight it.
Right. And sometimes people do that because it's stacked against them, and it's going to cost more money, and it's more trouble than it's worth. You might as well throw yourself, what they say, throw yourself at the mercy of the court.
Yes, exactly. So he does this. His attorney really tries to argue that there was no improper, like, physical contact.
No, but
like,
telling a kid,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
please.
Exactly. So gross. So he really gets a really light punishment, to be honest. He gets 5 years probation and counseling.
Yeah.
But he also has to register as a sex offender. And here's where his trouble really starts to, then he gets even more trouble, because it's been extended multiple times because the dude keeps moving and he keeps not registering as a sex offender. So he continues to get recharged over and over. Like, this shit would have been over by now for him. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't want to. I don't know if he doesn't want to do it or what, because you would think, I don't know, if you're being charged with something like this and it is you are obligated to register as a sex offender. I don't know. It seems like something you wouldn't forget every time you move.
But he doesn't want to have that stink on him anymore.
Exactly. But
yeah, which I
bad.
understand, but too fucking bad. Yeah,
Yeah, so he's been arrested twice for failing to update, including once in Florida and then again in California in 2010. Every time he receives community service, like a lot of community service, 250 hours of community service, and then he gets another 3 years probation. The dude is still, like, on probation.
Wow.
Because of it. And needless to say, he doesn't get as much work as he used to, like, which means there's probably more to the story than we know. I think that the industry's like,
yeah,
I think there might be more. He was doing a movie once in 2006 called Who's Your Caddy? Get it? Instead of Who's Your Daddy? Who's Your Caddy? I guess
is that an Adam Sandler film?
No, but you would think so.
Go with it.
Yeah. He was filming there, and apparently, like, locals got really upset because, first of all, he showed up, families were visiting the set, things like that, and they didn't know that he's a registered sex offender. So the community got really upset, as they should. Like, but then he did get another gig. He showed up in HBO's Deadwood.
Yeah, I was going to say, a great show.
Yeah.
You never heard the word cocksucker said so many times and so eloquently.
So many times. I loved this show.
I love Deadwood.
Honestly, I forgot he was even in the show, and I didn't know the stuff about him when I watched it, to be honest. Like, this is stuff I learned years later, probably when we started doing this podcast. Yeah. That someone's like, have you done this guy? So he was in Deadwood for, like, it was only on for 2 seasons, which is a crime.
I think it was
in
too
my opinion, as
expensive
well.
or something for the
It was
time.
pretty expensive.
Yeah.
So good. It was a good thing.
show.
Good. Yeah, and there was a Deadwood movie in 2019, and he was in that as well. So, but other than that, he does not work. He tries to do like the Comic-Con circuit.
Principal
the,
Rooney booth.
Yeah, the celebrity.
You have to show your age.
Yeah. It's not working for him. I've seen some videos of people who run into him and like he seems like he's always super nice to people who approach him, of course.
Oh, yeah,
and
okay.
And take pictures. Because again, people don't know. Like again, researching for this episode, like people are like, I just learned blah blah blah. Like they don't know. They have no idea. Even like Justin Bieber saw him one time and took a picture with him and posted it on Instagram, and people are like, "You might want to take that." They don't know.
No.
A new Beetlejuice movie is coming out. I think this summer, right?
Yeah.
And he is not in the movie. So if y'all are wondering, they've killed off his character, which, in the Beetlejuice world, he could still be a ghost, but I guess he's not going to be.
Yeah.
He's not in it at all. Like they are done with him. So that is our other creep, Jeffrey Jones. So
Good
Stephen
job.
Collins and Jeffrey Jones.
Good job, Sonia. I listened to a show called Sam Pancake Monday Afternoon Movie,
Yeah.
and he talks about TV movies from the 70s and 80s, and it's usually kind of fun. I mean, they do have those, the very special episodes like Helen Hunt jumping out of a window on Angel Dust, like Angel Dust was her
remember that
movie
one.
and stuff like that. But he did one recently, an episode with Margaret Cho, and it was all about Fallen Angel. Do you remember this TV movie? You might have been really young. You're a couple
Angel.
years younger than me. So it was about Richard Mazer, who was Anne Romano's boyfriend One Day at a Time. He was their lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
He's been in a million jillion things. I can't even, Richard
Okay.
Mazer's like another character actor, not a creep. But he plays a creep. He plays a guy that's drawing in kids to make these kinds of movies. And there's a girl named Dana Plato who was 16 at the time, but she always looked much younger. She was in
Different Strokes.
No, she was in not Different Strokes. You're thinking Dana Plato. She was Dana. What was her last name now? Now I'm blanking on it. But Fallen Angel. She was the sister in National Lampoon's European Vacation.
Yes. All right, I know who you're talking about.
Yes. So that Dana was diabetic, and that was one of the reasons why she was smaller, because she was always on a lot of medicine, and she was very petite, and she looked much younger than she actually was. She plays a girl that's only like 11, and it's in California, and Richard Mazer basically, grooms her and some other kid, and I remember as a little kid watching it and thinking one of the boys was cute. And then I looked at it a couple weeks ago because this episode came out. And I realized he was 11. I was like 9 maybe. And so, so I saw this when I was 9, and it's creepy fucking shit. It's on Freevee, Tubi, it's on, you could see it. It's called Fallen Angel. But anyway, there's a whole scene in the movie. Melinda Dillon plays the mother. And Melinda Dillon.
I love Melinda Dillon.
She goes to the police and has evidence, these magazines with children being advertised in the magazine for making these kinds of movies. And the cops another runaway parents coming in here. You don't give your kids time. So now we got to take care of things for you. That was the attitude.
Yeah.
Like these kids that were in these things were kind of just lost, and they had messed up parents. So, oh, well, that's just what happens. And people didn't take it as seriously as they should have. And this is only 10 years later when you're talking about it with Pee Wee and with, So, people used to not take it very seriously.
They did not. Also, it was just very rub some dirt on it and walk it off kind of
walk it off. And that's
too.
basically with her, do you want to get therapy? She's like, nah, I don't know about that. But it's she should. But anyway, that's my whole point. Okay, so do we want to hear about somebody who's not a creep? Let's cleanse the timeline here.
Please. Yes.
This person is one of my favorite Jennifers. Jennifer Coolidge is...
I love Jennifer Coolidge.
Jennifer Coolidge. She's just, she came to light. She's from Massachusetts. And her really her really big thing was being an American Pie. She was in a million things before American Pie, but once she's an actress. She's from the East Coast. She went to Emerson College, American Academy of Dramatic Arts. Always been a character actor. She's always really good at improv as well. She does all those Christopher Guest movies.
Yes.
But she really made her big debut was in 1999 as Stifler's mother.
Stifler's mom.
She was the MILF.
Got it going on.
And she was in Legally Blonde, American
I love
Wedding.
Her in that. Love her.
She's just in a million jillion things. She's always a delight. She's somebody who's a real ally to people. There's something very fun and relatable about her. There's nothing. The White Lotus. I mean, is there anything better than her in The White Lotus? Nothing. Oh, God. She's so good. She also dated Chris Kattan for a while. Like, okay.
What?
I know.
That seems like a weird match.
That to me, I don't get. Mango? I mean,
she would eat him alive.
Well, maybe
maybe that's their thing.
That's where he went. I don't know. But I wanted to pick her today because she also is there. Like we said, she's an ally. She works a lot for AIDS causes and AIDS assistance, but also she's a big animal rights person.
Oh,
and she's a vegan, and she was crowned. And we're not huge fans of PETA, but I do like. She was PETA's vegan queen in 2023.
Okay, well, we like that.
We like that. And she also adopted a dog named Chewy that was rescued from a meat factory in Korea. And she's one of the most impersonated drag queen people out there.
No doubt.
And apparently she gets like people who go up to her all the time and do imitations of her. And I think don't do that if you meet her. Just let her be her.
Yeah.
Just don't impress her with that. But that's our non-creep this week, Jennifer Coolidge. An amazing character actress. Character actor.
It makes me want a hot dog real bad.
I like soup.
We like talking and not talking.
Not talking.
I love her. That's a great choice.
That's our show this week. And if you have suggestions, we do recommend that you reach out to us. All those places I mentioned at the top of the show. We love it when you use the Annie Potts gift from Ghostbusters. We got one. They just had the 40th anniversary here in New York outside the Firehouse.
Oh, that's
which
amazing.
is like 4 miles from my apartment. I didn't know about it until the next day. Our email, once again, is whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com. And if you would like some stickers, let us know. We also co-host a show called Dorking Out, where we dork out about movies. And Sonia, what are we talking about next?
My sister has been asking us to talk about Can't Hardly Wait for years. So we are finally going to talk about Can't Hardly Wait. You shared a clip in our What a Creep group. People are really excited. A lot of them grew up watching this movie.
Yeah.
Somebody else commented, I have a feeling this is aged like bananas. And I suspect that person might be right.
I think it's streaming everywhere. I saw it on Criterion. And I was like, well, if it's on Criterion, but Criterion is kind of a wild card of a channel. It is fun to kind of check out Criterion, even just to see what they have that month, like what they put in there. But anyway.
I think this is going to be a good conversation. I know that you've watched this and I've already watched it, the documentary Bratz.
Yes, we're also going to talk about Bratz.
Yes.
We'll save that for then. And then we're also going to talk about Below Deck, whether or not the chef should wake up if he woken up in the middle of the night. This is very important.
We have thoughts.
We have thoughts and feelings about this. Sonia, where can they find you?
You can find me at thesoniashow.com and The Sonia Show on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, wherever you are. I'm there. Probably talking about Below Deck or Love Island or something.
Or
Vanderpump.
Really
important stuff. Or Vanderpump Rules. Really important stuff. Where can people find you, Margot?
I'm at Brooklyn Margot for TikTok and Instagram. I should mention, by the way, if you sign up for Patreon, you don't have to pay. You can just get get a free version. Yeah. And I always put the clips from Dorking Out on there. So that's a place you could check if you don't have social media. Some of our listeners say, I don't have TikTok or Instagram. So anyway, So on Twitter and TikTok, I'm at Brooklyn Margot. Everything else, I'm at Brooklyn Fit Chicken. That's my site. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. Be safe. Be kind. Just don't be a creep.
Be a creep. Thank you for listening to us talk about creeps. You can follow us at What a Creep Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
But don't follow us too closely.
You can email us your creepy stories at whatacreeppodcast@gmail.com.
But please keep your dick pics to yourself.